It was a heck of a weekend for the Big Ten teams out there. And look, I think we're going to find out about a lot of these teams in the next week, okay? Because it was a lot of blowout games, just a lot of games that if you were a fan of that team, you probably left happy at halftime, knowing that your team blew out so many different teams. There was a couple of games where I think you may have learned a little bit about a few teams, but for the most part, next week when you actually see divisional games or you actually see the Big Ten playing each other, that's when we're going to know a lot about what's happening with the teams in this league and who the for real teams are and who are the pretenders. So, that being said, there's a couple things that I want to talk about. One, especially here locally, the Michigan Wolverines. Wow, 63-3 against Central Michigan. Biff Poggi is the acting head coach, and they unleashed a can of whoop ass on the Central Michigan Chippewas. What you saw was, I think, what every Michigan fan was begging for Michigan to open up that offensive playbook and let Bryce Underwood just go out there and be Bryce Underwood and run the ball and do everything. I mean, on our show, we had an over-under of him with 15 and a half yards. Yeah, he went over on that very first run. As a matter of fact, he finished with 114 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 235 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, and 1 INT. Hell of a day for the freshman, the true freshman, and he went out there, he led the Michigan Wolverines in that offense. Now, if they can continue that offense and assembly of that offense and how it was working, along with the defense, it looked better. But you got to pump the brakes because like a lot of Big Ten teams, you played against the bad team, and you made bad teams look like bad teams. The good takeaway, though, in watching Bryce and his development and just how he's going along. Now, my only suggestion to the young man, he's got to learn how to slide. He's got to learn you do not go head first trying to get the first down all the time because all it takes is just some linebacker coming in and landing on top of one of those shoulders and separating it, and your season will be done. You learn how to slide. You're better protected. If anybody hits you, it's a flag. You go head first and somebody hits you, that's not a flag, and you could cost yourself a lot. I can tell that this is something that he has not done a lot because, it's almost like background football for him, and it's fun. You see the enthusiasm because he is young, but somebody's got to pull him aside and say, Bryce, no. Way too valuable to have something happen to you. Got to pump the brakes. You cannot do that. But yeah, hell of a day for Bryce Underwood for Michigan as they go out there and they win 63-3. Game never in doubt. Ever in doubt. The other game that took place a little bit later in East Lansing, Michigan State defeats Youngstown State 41-24. And it's a game where you look at the score and you're like, okay, well, you know what? Add Michigan State to the teams that just kind of piled on the bad teams. Except it really wasn't that way. They got a last-second score from Tolliver with like about a minute or so to go. But they did not cover the Vegas line. And for as good as they looked, there were certain things that just were not. But I think the biggest thing you walk away with is the 3 injuries that most Spartan fans are concerned with. It's Luka Vucinic, the offensive lineman, Mekhi Frazier, the running back, and the biggest one was Nick Marsh, the wide receiver. And Nick Marsh was having a great game as we were progressing, and then all of a sudden he was just gone right before halftime when Michigan State was on the drive. And then you come to find out that I think it was a knee injury, and they're going to wait to see what happens. By the time you watch this, we'll probably have more news. But by the time I'm recording this right now, we don't know the news as of right now, what's going to happen with Nick Marsh or Frazier. Jonathan Smith post-game sounded a little more optimistic with Frazier, as if this wouldn't be that big of not a big deal, but he would be back for the USC game out on the West Coast next Saturday night, late Saturday night. Wow, is it late? Anyway, those are the 3 biggest things that, when you play teams like a Youngstown State, you want to get out there, you want to see the backups play, you don't want to see anybody get injured, and you just want to go out there and beat the hell out of them. Well, You didn't check that marks for any of those three things. Childs was out there the entire time. You were maybe hoping to get the backup quarterback in. They did get a few backups in there. Boyd took over for Nick Marsh at wide receiver, Evan Boyd, but he didn't record a catch in the game. It's and I guess the other thing too about this game, like I said, Michigan State won, but it was still a lot of questions will be answered, and I think you'll find out more when they hit the road next week to go play USC. But I think the biggest concern for me in watching this team is a couple things: the pass defense, and I mean the third and whatever. It just doesn't matter because what's this guy? The quarterback was it Jaden? No. Who was it? Bo Brungard, the quarterback for Youngstown State. He was just getting the job done, whether it was with his legs, through the arm. Like, they couldn't get off the field a lot of times, and it was just like, wow, it was very concerning because this is a pattern that you're seeing with this defense throughout the season so far. Even though they're 3-0 and they're halfway to being bowl eligible, kind of feels like a little bit of a fraudulent 3-0. The offensive side, I think, is progressing. The defensive side, man, they are either going backwards or they're just very, very stagnant. But one of the things that they also got to work on, when you're a team like Michigan State, you got to be able to steal points. And I've talked about this in the last reaction. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the week 3 instant reaction, not the week 2. I'm so sorry about that. Week 3. I'm kidding. I'm confused with the NFL. Anyway, what happens is you have to be able to steal points. Late into the first half, Michigan State is driving down, and all of a sudden there's a pass, and it's like, okay, great. Now you're seeing the Spartans. It looks like they're about to do it. Jack Belling catches a pass, gets down to the 1 with 7 seconds left. MSU has 1 timeout to go. Now, conventional thinking is you call your timeout, you have 7 seconds, you got enough time for 2 plays. One play is a quick strike, quick fade, or a quick slant to the end zone. Either it's a touchdown or it's an incomplete pass. Clock is stopped. And at that point, you're on the 1. Either you just go for it and anything is on the table. You can run the ball. You can do whatever because time is going to run out. Or you bring the field goal team out and you kick the field goal. Well, none of that happened. Instead, they went up. They tried to spike the ball. And then Velling said he got held up. And because he wasn't set, it was a penalty. They got pushed back. They ended up kicking a field goal, but that was points you left out on the field. Now, against Youngstown State, that's no big deal. You can recover from that. But playing USC, playing the Nebraskas, playing the schools in the future, you're not as good as other schools are. You can't afford to leave points on the field. And the clock management, once again, just poor. It reminds me of Western Michigan when, at the end of the first half, he went into halftime with all of his timeouts. Call the timeout 7 seconds ago. Call 2 plays during the timeout. We're going to run this play. If we don't score, we're either going to run this play or we're going to line up and we're going to kick a field goal. But you got to give yourself an opportunity. And I just didn't see that organization. And when asked about it, he just kind of said, well, you know, we thought we had some time. And it's like, dude, you had a timeout. You ended up having to use a timeout because of the penalty, so it wouldn't be a 10-second runoff. Or you could just better prepare yourself and call the damn timeout. It's not that difficult. Anyway, so that's what went on with Michigan State. Also, a couple other games, you found out that Wisconsin went to Alabama, and man, did Bama show them that the SEC was boss. Wisconsin never in this game. As, Ryan Williams just, made a couple catches that are like, wow. But yeah, Alabama wins 38-14. And then another game that I found myself, it was because it was a delay. When I got home from the Spartan game, I was able to catch the end of the game, was USC and Purdue, and both teams going into the game were undefeated. USC ends up winning the game 33-17. But if you're Purdue, you got to kick yourself because you had every opportunity to win this thing. 2 interceptions in the red zone, in the end zone. that cost you 14 points right there. Plus, you had another interception. You had 3 interceptions that happened within the red zone. 2 happened in the end zone. Those 3 plays right there may have been the difference, and maybe you end up beating USC. Instead, the Trojans walk away with a 33-17 lead, well, a victory. I think the biggest game, though, and the one that caused the most problems, is New Mexico Friday night defeats UCLA. And with that ends the Deshaun Foster tenure of coaching at UCLA. He was fired on Sunday. I mean, this I felt bad because you knew he was a dead man walking. If you saw, he didn't start off good. If you saw him at Big Ten Media Day that first year when they asked, hey, tell us a little bit about UCLA. And he's just like, well, we're in LA, same city as USC. He seemed ill-prepared that day, and that was just a microcosm of everything that would happen with this young man as a coach. I don't know how much he wanted Nico Iamaleava, but they're 0-3, and they're paying that quarterback a ton of money, and they haven't been even competitive in games, and that's been the problem. UCLA just pulled the plug. Coach had 2 years, and he was done. And I think you're going to see a lot of that because there's too much money involved. There's too many players out there that you're paying high dollar value for. And he's gone. 3 games into his tenure of this year, he is fired. And where UCLA goes after this, I don't know. But, man, it amazes me that he didn't even get a full 2 years there. That's the new nature of the game. But watching UCLA, along with a high-valued, high-priced quarterback in Nico Iamaleava, you're not winning. And you're losing 35-10 to New Mexico. Yeah, that's problematic. The Bruins fans weren't too happy about it, and they just said, you know what? We've seen enough. Enough is enough, and we're done. So that was probably the biggest news that happened. Like I said, a lot of the games in the Big Ten were just kind of easygoing bye games. Teams came in, and they got beat down. Shout out to Iowa, Kirk Ferentz. He passes Woody Hayes as Iowa destroyed whatever team that they were playing. I'm really looking forward to next weekend, though. Next weekend is, I think, where the rubber hits the road, where you find out how good some of the teams are. There's some matchups in there. Illinois, Indiana, something I want to watch to see who's who with there. As I said, for me, Michigan traveling to Nebraska. They're going to be without head coach Sharon Moore. Pogge's going to be the interim coach again. Both teams, I don't know what they really are, and I think this is going to be a good litmus test to let me know who Nebraska is, who Michigan is. Same, USC, Michigan State, both teams undefeated. We'll see what's going to be happening there. But yet next week's games, that's where I think we're going to have a deeper dive and what we know what the Big Ten is and who's going to be the better teams in the Big Ten and who are going to be the pretenders in the Big Ten. But for now, that's your instant reaction for week number 3 in the Big Ten. I'm your host, Rico Beard. Thanks for watching the 5-Star Zone. I'll be back later on this week with Harold Sheldon as we get ready to prepare for week number 4. This week, I'm going to be excited to see what happens. Until then, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching and subscribing to the 5-Star Zone.